foreign, predatory, parasitic corporations are replacing our natural environment with an industrial landscape of wind turbines. One Nation will stand against sending children down a path of drug dependency and body mutilation to appease the gender cult. Leave our kids alone. The Trusted Digital Identity Bill is a global surveillance and control mechanism that profit-hungry corporations and power-mad politicians drafted and crafted. One Nation opposes this inhuman, dystopian future that the United Nations promotes as the Great Reset, and we condemn this Parliament for signing on to it. I call for Australia to reject the World Economic Forum's Great Reset and instead mount a great resist. Just like the koalas being euthanised to make way for wind turbines, or damaged solar panels leaking toxic heavy metals into waterways, the United Nations net zero plan again involves killing the environment to save it. I've been speaking about the fear, the oppression and the inhuman cruelty of our COVID response since July 2020. I promised to hound down those responsible, and I will continue relentlessly to keep that promise. You're about to be live with me, Senator Malcolm Roberts. G'day, it's Friday. Hang on, we've got a technical problem to start with. I've got two voices of me, one's enough. I'll keep going and someone can come and help me fix it. Love, care and reason. They're three traits unique to our species. You know, they were the opening words of my speech on Sunday at the Gold Coast. It was a 35-minute speech and I got a standing ovation. And they're also the closing remarks, because I'm very, very pro-human. There's a lot of nasty stuff happening in our planet, happening amongst our species. But the majority of humans are wonderful, absolutely wonderful, and I have complete faith in the majority of people. We've got to wake more people up and get us fixed on being very positive about humans. Last Sunday, I went to the inaugural Lily branch meeting of One Nation. Good time. Very, very committed people, so thank you so much for being there. I want to thank Christine for allowing me to attend, because she doesn't get much time as a family together these days. Speaking of events, Young Nation tonight, an evening tonight with Young Nation at Tingalpa Hotel. Starts at 6:30 p.m. and ends at 7:15 p.m. and then just socialising after that. Anybody in the area who's young, between I think it's 18 and 35, you're welcome to come along. The more the merrier. So Tingalpa Hotel, 6:30 p.m. See you there. Right, doing the weekly wrap. We have got a hell of a lot of stuff on today because my staff's been busy, I've been busy, we keep adding stuff to this list, but I'm going to have to read because there's just so much. International students, here we go yet again with the Albanese Labor government trying to destroy our country. There you can see the headline from the Daily Mail. The Albanese Labor government is going to allow an even bigger flood of international students into the country, breaking its promise to cut international students, breaking its promise yet again. Quote from the Daily Mail. Pauline Hanson has slammed the Albanese government for further increasing international student numbers, claiming many are working cash in hand, dodging tax and taking jobs from everyday Australians. As an aside, they're sending $11 billion a year back to their families. They're bringing families with them who are taking up houses in this country. Continuing from the newspaper article. Labor will raise the 2026 cap to 295,000 international student places, 25,000 more than flagged for 2025, despite promises to reduce migration numbers and amid repeated warnings the system is being abused. It's a Ponzi scheme. Critics, including Senator Hanson and former Treasury economist Leith Van Onselen, and he's normally a lefty in my opinion, they both say the student visa scheme is no longer about education, but about cheap labour for businesses that pay them, under the counter and as a step toward permanent migration. Everyone wins except for the country, we lose. They also warn, that's Hanson and Leith Van Onselen, that huge numbers of arrivals also compete with Australians for rental properties, pushing prices in major cities to extraordinary levels. We want Australians in Australian homes, not a Ponzi scheme. This isn't just student immigration either. So it's about test scores for migrants coming in. Quote from the article in the Australian newspaper. The Albanese government has quietly lowered the minimum English test mark to be eligible for some visas. According to Pearson, the drop means the standard falls from someone who quote, can understand sentences and frequently used expressions, end of quote, and can, another quote, can communicate in simple and routine tasks requiring a simple and direct exchange of information on familiar and routine matters, end of quote. So basic English. That's been revised down to someone who can only, quote, understand and use familiar everyday expressions and very basic phrases and can interact in a simple way provided the other person talks slowly and clearly and is prepared to help. This is putting enormous pressure on our students. We have students, we have international students, some of them are fine, but we have so many international students under the reduced standards coming into this country, bludgeoning on group assignments with Australians working hard, and then making it difficult for Australians to even understand what is going on in the class. Now we move to another thing. And by the way, I was on a panel about 8 months ago, with a former UK minister. And what he was saying about immigration is what I've been saying about immigration in this country. It's all over the world. How many immigrants are living in Australia illegally? About 75,000 illegal at the moment, and maybe as many as 100,000 students, international students, in breach of their visas. Pineapple. But immigration is wrecking, massive, catastrophic immigration is wrecking many Western nations, wrecking it, and I'm saying that deliberately, wrecking it. It's becoming catastrophic. There are so many things that you can read in the papers, so many things we can hear firsthand. Not only immigration, but also online safety, which is a bloody word for censorship. The Online Safety Act in the UK is causing havoc, suppressing speech, suppressing basic freedoms, and the e-safety commissar, Julie Inman-Grant, is looking at bringing the same here. The UK, I'll read from notes, has brought into force an Online Safety Act to protect children, and it's similar to Australia. It's been used to censor social media or of political discussion. Things like protests against illegal migrant hotels, protests against migrants committing serious assaults on children, mass rapes, these have been hidden from UK users, hidden from UK social media users. Discussions from elected politicians about police involvement in grooming gangs was censored as adult content. James Ross, you're absolutely right. Free speech is so important. It is vital. It is apart from the freedom of life, it is the most important freedom there is, and freedom of property. Freedom of life, number one, because without that, you're not living. Freedom of speech, freedom of use of your own private property. Secure private property rights. Grooming gangs was censored as adult content. This is supposedly by protecting children, by stopping people from talking about how dangerous the streets are. How the hell does that protect children? It lulls them into a false sense of security when you can't talk about how dangerous the streets are. We're talking about London, in some areas of London, just like in some areas of Paris, and some areas of France, and now third world, that it's being destroyed by Islamic extremists. Let's call it what it is. The UK Science and Technology Secretary, Peter Kyle, accused Nigel Farage of being on the side of predators like Jimmy Savile because Farage accused the government of using child safety to censor political discussions. So just by speaking up the truth, Nigel Farage was accused of being on the side of a pedophile. That is how absurd it is. Next thing they'll be calling Pauline Hanson racist to try and stop her. She's never been racist, but this is absolute garbage. This is what they're doing all over the world, preying on good people who stand up, people like myself and Pauline, and they call us all kinds of names. But it's not going to shut us up. It's not going to shut us up. We double down because control, when they use labels, it's a form of control, trying to shut us down. Control is always beneath control. There is fear. We will, mongrel. We'll keep it up. Don't worry. Kids are now downloading virtual private networks, VPNs, in huge numbers, exposing them to more dangerous parts of the internet. There's no way of absolutely checking what those kids are up to, that those children are up to. So that's even more dangerous. And that's what happens when you have a stupid regulation. Good people come up with ways of getting around it, which can be sometimes even worse. But that's how much freedom is important. Children want to socialize with their peers. It's a natural human trait. We need to make sure it's there and make sure it's safe, not censor people. Is compulsory digital ID involved? The UK government is talking about it. But think about it. This Australian government has introduced a ban of under 16s on social media. The e-safety officer wants to now extend that to search engines, maps like Google Maps and Apple Maps. So what it's doing is it's forcing people to get a digital ID so that they can be checked on. Well, what's going to happen is, unless you've got a digital ID, you won't be able to say you're over 16. So you won't be able to use Google other than the child safe entries. You won't be able to use Google Maps, Apple Maps. You won't be able to use, on your phone or your browser on your desktop or laptop. So to get access to real sites, adult sites, I'm not talking about adult porn, I'm talking about adult sites that are not children's sites, you'll need a digital ID. That's how we told them all this. We told everyone that this was coming. There's a suite of 5 bills that the Liberal Party introduced, the Liberal Nationals introduced under Morrison, a little proud, and they're now being put into place by the Albanese government. The Albanese Waters government, because Senator Larissa Waters is the leader of the Greens. It's a coalition. It is a communist shit show in the Senate. I can't think of any other words. It's a communist shit show in the Senate. They have 39 of 76 seats. They control the Senate. What the Greens want, the Labor Party will give them to get their own things, look after their mates through the Senate. Thanks, Duncan. Very, very pleased to see you're a proud One Nation member. Now, a VPN, or virtual private networks, creates a secure encrypted connection over the internet. It masks your IP address and encrypts your data, making it harder for others to track your online safety and location, online activity and location. Essentially, it creates a private tunnel for your internet traffic, enhancing privacy and security, especially when using public Wi-Fi. So this regulation will drive less safety for children and more scrutiny for adults, more restrictions for adults. They'll monitor everything we do. Next, Tribunal rejects again E-Safety Commission's third attempt to avoid review of informal takedowns. We want the E-Safety Commissar to actually be held accountable under law and to be open and transparent in what she and her office do. So they've been avoiding their regulatory duties by informally taking down sites. The UK is important because it's an exact copy of the road we're heading down in Australia with our Online Safety Act. Yet here in Australia, the Australian E-Safety Commissar, Julie Inman-Grant, has been slapped down yet again. Quote, I think this is from Epoch Times, which is a wonderful newspaper. Australia's online safety, it is from the Epoch Times. Australia's online safety chief, Julie Inman-Grant, has again been told by a federal tribunal that she cannot avoid legal review by using informal methods to contact tech companies instead of issuing a formal takedown notice under the Online Safety Act. What the hell do these people think they're doing? They seem to think they're above the law. They can hide what they're doing from us, from the Australian people, from the judges, from the parliamentarians, but they want to nail you for everything you do. That just shows the double standard. Another quote, this time from the Free Speech Union. Today's decisions show the E-Safety Commissar has once again seriously misunderstood their duties towards the general public. Worst of all, it's the taxpayer who's yet again footed the bill for the Commissioner's lack of understanding. The taxpayer is on the hook for every bloody thing in this country, every misunderstanding, every deliberate lie, every fraud. The tax committed by parliamentarians and bureaucrats, the taxpayer pays for. As I said at the start of this section, this is about misinformation and disinformation. It is about censorship, pure and simple, and about getting you to force you to get a digital ID. Now, the Free Speech Union of Australia has accused the E-Safety Commissar of raising conspiracies. There's that word again. See how they use labels? About the director of the FSU, Reuben Kirkham. The supposed conspiracy that the Free Speech Union is a front group for X and Elon Musk. You can't make this stuff up, but see how they use the term conspiracy theorist or conspiracy to try and smear X and Elon Musk, and by association the Free Speech Union, because they're in the same sentence together. That might be their only link. The Free Speech Union is fighting against the E-Safety Commissioner, so they're being attacked. That's all it is. So not only do they avoid things by doing things informally, avoid their regulatory scrutiny, what they do is attack people who are calling them out. All that has been asked of the e-safety commissar is transparency and honesty through freedom of information. That is all. A good bureaucrat, a loyal servant of the people would certainly make sure that they comply with that. Now some good news, really good news. The United States is bringing exciting changes back to truth and scientific integrity. The US Environmental Protection Agency, which used to be a complete fraudulent, restricting, globalist agenda driven, there you go. There it is, it's up on the screen. The USA Environmental Protection Agency under Trump is now getting cleaned out and is starting to serve the people again. There's a new report titled A Critical Review of Impacts of Greenhouse Gas Emissions on the US Climate. So there it is. The authors, let me go through the list of authors here. I know some of these people personally. John Christie. He used to be in the United Nations Intergovernmental Panel on Climate Change as a lead author. So he was involved in that crazy outfit, that politically motivated outfit to drive global control. John Christie complained and complained and complained about the parasites who were the bureaucrats who were using the IPCC as a political entity, corrupting the science. He eventually gave up. They took no notice because they are there to corrupt the science. He resigned. David Leggett's is a phenomenal statistician. He's been very strong. These are very strong people. Steve Koonin, he is another very interesting guy. He used to believe in this climate rubbish. And then he just assumed it was true. He's a very good scientist. He just assumed it was true, like so many people. And then the closer he came to looking at it, the more things were said, the worse it became. And he then started looking at it and said, it is a crock. Judith Curry is another one who was initially just assumed it was true. And then she thought, hang on, why are they saying some of these things? But more importantly, why are they belting anybody who dares challenge them, anyone who dares ask questions? Asking a basic question about science is a scientist's number one duty. When a scientist hears of new material, his or her number one duty is to be a skeptic, to ask questions, to interrogate. That is what real scientists love to do, and the person being interrogated loves it. They love the debate because it tightens up the scrutiny. And then there's another marvelous scientist, Roy Spencer, who has been, along with John Christie at the University of Alabama, Huntsville, they've been managing the NASA satellite data that comes out from the University of Alabama, Huntsville. And that is one of the few temperature records that is immune from distortion, fabrication to fabricate warming. What their data shows from NASA, remember this is NASA satellites, is that there's virtually no trend up or down in the last 30 years, since 1995, no trend at all. Some people say there's a very, very slight trend, but there's nothing unusual going on. There's natural variation due to El Nino and La Nina cycles, but that's it. That's it. There's nothing happening. The world is not warming. So it's a fabulous report. I haven't read it, but it will be a fabulous report just looking at the scientists involved. Okay. Now, so there it is. It's 139 pages. I guarantee it'll be good because I know some of the authors and I know the quality of all of the authors. Right. Something else from the United States of America's Environmental Protection Agency. A declaration that CO2, carbon dioxide, is not a pollutant. Is not a pollutant. You know, prior to Julia Gillard calling it a pollutant, to demonize carbon dioxide, to push the climate scam, and then Barack Obama taking it up, it was never a pollutant. It was not a pollutant anywhere in the world. I have a friend who worked with us exposing this climate rubbish, and he wrote to the United Nations some years ago, around about 2014, I think, and asked them if carbon dioxide was a pollutant. And the reply from the United Nations climate body, the Intergovernmental Panel on Climate Change, said, we cannot find it anywhere in our reports that carbon dioxide is a pollutant. That's from the United Nations itself, who are pushing this rubbish. But let's have a look at a quote. I saw the EPA's announcement. So they've now taken down carbon dioxide as a pollutant. It's no longer a pollutant in the United States. The United States is coming back to sense in so many areas. Oh, and by the way, the report that I just talked about from the 5 scientists finds, amongst many things, it finds that US policy actions are expected to have undetectably small direct effects on the global climate, and any effects will emerge only with long delays. Having had a short, and they're also talking about the many benefits of carbon dioxide. So here's the EPA. It quotes the CO2 coalition, the carbon dioxide coalition, on the previous Barack Obama endangerment findings. For more than 30 years, carbon dioxide has been demonized as a dangerous pollutant by a cabal of special interests who pursued political science instead of true science. That's what I've been saying since 2007. Over the past decade, it continues, the CO2 coalition has rebutted this narrative by educating the public about the beneficial role of the gas, carbon dioxide, in nature, and by insisting on rigorous scientific inquiry in deciding such matters. EPA's, the Environmental Protection Agency's proposal today to rescind the regulation of carbon dioxide for vehicles validates our efforts and those of thousands of scientists, make that tens of thousands of scientists, and others who stood for the truth. We expect this and other regulatory reforms to end foolish public policy that has wastefully diverted trillions of dollars, that is correct, it's trillions of dollars, toward a manufactured climate emergency and away from work that could have otherwise benefited people. That is so true. And we've got billionaires and globalist corporations trying to make money out of this. We've got major banks. The former head of our CSIRO, Chief Executive of our CSIRO, Dr. Megan Clark, was on the board, at the time she was Chief Executive of the CSIRO, she was on the board of 2 large banks, on the advisory board of 2 large banks. Bank of America Merrill Lynch, International Bank, American Bank, and Rothschilds Australia. Yes, you heard that correct, Rothschilds Australia. She was on the board. Surely that's a conflict of interest from the CSIRO. So here's the quote of the week from Vijay Yarajaz. Quote, Trump's rejection of climate orthodoxy matches the aspirations of developing nations striving to ensure energy security and overcome poverty. Expect these countries to be emboldened to more openly pursue their preferred energy strategies and leave the Paris Agreement themselves. That's hitting the nail right on the head. Hydrocarbon fuels, high-density energy, portable energy, give us our transport, our electricity, and so much more. They're essential for developing humanity, for human progress, and pulling people out of poverty. And the bastards at the UN want to suppress all of that. These fake climate claims, and I've been saying this since I wrote about it in 2009, these fake climate claims divert real attention, real focus, real energy, real money, resources from real environmental problems. We're wasting it on bullshit, and that is holding humans back. We're now subsidizing parasitic solar and wind. When I say parasitic, they cannot exist in competition with coal without subsidies. That means they're parasitic. They're destroying. Dolly, yes, I am. I'm not denying climate change. I'm denying human cause of climate variability. There's no change going on. Natural change going on. That's all. Natural variation going on. There's no change in anything. We have 24,000 climate and energy data sets, Dolly, from around the world, obtained legally. There's not one data set that shows a change, a significant upward trend, a significant jump up, process change. It's all just natural variation and cycles. So I'm not denying, I am denying that there is change. I'm not denying there's climate variability. Right, one of the consequences of all this nonsense on climate is that, I'll keep a track on time, is that electric cars are under fire for dodgy marketing. We have electric cars. Think about it. We're destroying our energy grid, making it unstable, unreliable, unsecure, and raising the price of it, raising the cost of electricity dramatically, which is the worst thing you can do to destroy a country's competitiveness. So we're destroying our electricity grid, and at the same time, the politicians like Bowen want to tell us that we have to convert our transport fleet onto electricity as well. So that's going to drive the costs up. We want to bring in Bitcoin. They want to bring in Bitcoin. They want to bring in AI, which needs huge amounts of energy. How the hell can we keep up when we're reducing the quantity of energy we produce on a reliable basis? So, quote, with regard to electric cars, some of Australia's most popular electric vehicles are spruiking misleading estimates of their battery range and capabilities. New research shows, with top brands Tesla and BYD, the Chinese outfit, amongst the worst offenders. Real-world testing of 5 of the country's top-selling EVs found some brands are claiming their cars can travel more than 20% further on a single battery charge than the distance they can actually travel. The worst-performing car was the BYD Atto from China, which had a real-world range of 369 kilometers on a single charge, 23% less than the 480 kilometers recorded in its laboratory test and advertised on its website. And if you put the car under stress from higher performance, or you tow something, that 369 kilometers on a single charge disappears into much, much less. These cars are not fit for purpose. These new range tests done on EVs have shown big differences between range claims. Some are up to 20% overstated. The Australian Automobile Association wanted to give Australians a real-world battery range. 60% of EV users list range as their biggest concern. We know that range anxiety is a big concern, a huge concern. I'll talk more about other anxieties with EVs in a minute. Quote, the real-world testing program, which started in 2023 with $14 million of Commonwealth funding, that should be taxpayer funding, had established that consumers cannot always rely on a car maker's laboratory test as an indicator of real-world performance. Wow. The real-world testing program commenced in 2023. Its creation followed the Volkswagen scandal of 2015, which demonstrated that regulation of vehicle emissions incentivizes car makers to optimize their vehicles for performance in the laboratory rather than the real world. In other words, they want to look good in the test rather than actually be good in the real world. The Chinese, how many data centers does it take to make climate change disappear? Chinese EV, BYD, is one of the worst offenders. So Hippie says they won't be able to send these here. As a ship catch fire at sea and sink, they're being banned from being shipped by sea. And they're being banned in China from being in lower floor garages beneath apartment blocks because they don't want to kill people from these things bursting into flames. Look at this electric vehicle propaganda that we're showing on the screen. They've just realized the study which says they are lying about the range. Released the study, which says they're lying about the range and about a lot of other things. Yet the article's headline says this will help overcome range anxiety. How will they? See what I mean? They're putting something that's very, very detrimental and cloaking it as a positive. How the hell is knowing that you've got even less range than you expected, than you were told when you bought the car, helping to overcome range anxiety? It makes it worse, but they wrapped it in a good headline. Even bad news is good news to the climate pushers. Oh, and then we've got range anxiety. Good on you, Aid. I drive a V8 Land Cruiser turbo diesel. Speaking of V8s, Porsche and Mercedes had said they're switching over to electric vehicles and they're going to stop, and they stopped making V8s. Guess what? They're coming back and they're reducing dramatically their production of electric vehicles. So we've got range anxiety, which is when you're afraid you'll run out of juice in your car, on your EV, and you'll be stuck. Well, there's now charger anxiety. So you're running short on range and you're anxious about the range. Will you make it to the charger? And then you see the queue on the charger and you think, that's charger anxiety. So the charging station has got a queue of cars lined up ready to be charged. And then you've got charge time anxiety. So not only how long will it take to get there, how long to get to the head of the queue and get your car in charge, how long it'll take to actually charge it. And then we've got society's challenges. We've got the increased demand on the electricity grid at a time when it's being made into unreliable, unstable, expensive electricity. So that'll lead to even higher power prices and reduced energy security. Petrol and diesel cars have proven more reliable, safer, they don't burst into flames, and They're much more affordable. The battery life at the moment is short, much shorter than expected. And what happens with the disposal? Then they're not recyclable. And here's another one about EVs. The reason the Labor Party, and for that matter the Liberals, won't talk about the cost of net zero transition is because you'll be paying, taxpayers, we will be paying for so much of the infrastructure. They want us in electric vehicles. They want us to buy extra batteries for the house. And they want us to pay for them. They'll subsidise them, but we will pay the majority of the costs. And so, and the subsidies come from other taxpayers. So they want to connect our storage devices, including our car, if it's an electric vehicle, to the grid so they can tap into it any time they want, because they cannot afford the batteries needed to do the transition. It is complete rubbish. Another breath of fresh air from the Centre for Independent Studies, an Australian think tank. There's a wonderful young lady talking about making an 8-minute video. There it goes. Gen Cost is the CSIRO's fraudulent report on the cost comparisons of solar and wind, nuclear and coal. It's an absolute disgrace. We pointed this out before. Now they've got the 2024-2025 report released. And Zoe Hilton at the Centre for Independent Studies has done an 8-minute video, which is just fantastic. She tells the truth. She's accurate. She's succinct. She's remarkable. Here's a quote. The CSIRO just admitted that coal is cheaper than renewables, but you wouldn't know it from the headlines. Assuming all the gen cost assumptions are correct, they're not. The report revealed that integrated renewables, which includes storage and transmission, cost on average 4% more than black coal projects. 4% more than black coal projects. And this is despite crooked assumptions that favour solar and wind that are dishonest and fraudulent and that hurt coal. They're not fair to coal. So if coal is cheaper, why does the CSIRO proclaim renewables remain the lowest cost new build electricity generation technology? As Zoe Hilton says, it's because the CSIRO has cherry-picked the results most favourable to renewables. While coal is cheaper than renewables for Gen Cost 2024 analysis, the report also compares cost estimates for projects built in 2030, and this is where the CSIRO's claim that renewables are cheaper comes from. But integrated renewables only look cheaper in 2030 because the CSIRO assumes pre-2030 storage and transmission projects will be built for free. In other words, if you need a new transmission line, a new power station for coal, the costs are in there. If you need a new transmission line, and they will need 28,000 kilometres of new transmission lines for 2030, if it's built before 2030 on the plan, supposedly, then it won't be counted because it'll be assuming they're already there. In other words, a huge proportion of solar and wind costs are not included. Worst of all, the CSIRO have chosen unrealistic assumptions that make new coal plants look more expensive than they would be in reality. When these assumptions are fixed, coal is hands down the clear cost winner, as it is in every country with significant proportions of solar and wind. Now, this is what I've said in my speech, partly in my speech last Sunday. CSIRO's fraudulent Gen Cost report grossly understates the cost of changing to solar and wind, the most expensive forms of energy generation. Any country with significant solar and wind proportion is more expensive, the electricity is more expensive than coal. Hands down, consistently, around the world. I went on Sunday, CSIRO's fraud is based on flawed assumptions about sunk costs, interest and discount rates, generator life expectancies, estimates of cost to build, unspecified firming costs, unknown pumped hydro costs. Just take one, for example, the life of solar and wind compared to the life of a coal plant. A good coal plant will last 60 years or more. What they do is they shorten the life of the span in their assumptions so that it puts increased cost per year, which puts increased cost per kilowatt hour produced. And solar and wind, they're exaggerated outwards, lengthened, and so that reduces their cost. This is just one of the many things they do that are dishonest and fraudulent. The Liberal Labor Uni Party has failed to closely scrutinise CSIRO's Gen Cost report. Now we've got Blackad Bowen and Anthony Albanese running blindfolded over a cliff and towing the whole country over the cliff. Next, solar and wind consume enormous resources and energy during manufacturing, making them very expensive. There's no other way around it. They require enormous energy and resources to make them, and per kilowatt of power they produce, that cost is huge. Then they're trying to eke out energy from low-density sources, such as wind and solar, very low-density sources, and that makes them very expensive. So they have high cost and very low power output and very irregular power output, which means batteries, pumped hydro, firming devices. That none of those are counted. That makes them very expensive. Plus, they return humanity, get this, I've been saying this for a number of years, to dependence on the vagaries of weather. When promoters of climate fraud, climate alarm, claim that the future increased weather variability. So they're forecasting we'll have weather, more variable weather, and they're saying let's make our human civilization dependent upon the vagaries of weather. Solar and wind are not suitable for an industrial economy such as aluminium smelting, just not capable of doing it. Subsidies are essential for solar and wind, and they reduce the national productivity and wealth creation, making solar and wind parasitic. If you have to subsidise, and the money comes from somewhere else, which reduces the productivity of the whole country, solar and wind are parasitic. If they're so bloody good, why do they still have subsidies? The reason they still have subsidies is they're no bloody good. Solar and wind are reversing human progress. In the last 170 years, well, 140 years between 1850, when the start of the Industrial Revolution, roughly, to about 1996, when John Howard came into power and started wrecking our grid, we had unrivaled human progress. And that's what the Chinese, the Asians, the Indians, the Africans all want that. That's why they're going to coal, they're going to nuclear, they're going to hydro, and they're ignoring solar and wind other than putting them up as token. Solar and wind are now reversing human progress. The number one determinant of human progress in the last 170 years has been ever decreasing prices of electricity and oil. And what's in real terms, they're ever decreasing. Until John Howard started fiddling with the national electricity market, which is a bureaucratic racket, and then he reversed human progress, and Labor Party has gone into overdrive on that. And I said this on Sunday, there is no scientific, no economic, no environmental, no social, no moral case for solar and wind. None at all. Full stop, end of story. They're parasites. After a huge amount of criticism, GenCost agrees now that coal is cheaper than renewables. CSIRO have been cherry-picking data to inflate the cost of nuclear and coal while downplaying renewables, solar and wind and batteries. No one knows how much renewables cost over, say, a century. No one. The numbers of replacements, they only last 15 to 20 years. Then you've got to replace them. Recycling, repowering, transmission, inflated raw materials. None of this has been costed, yet John Howard started the trend. Chris Bowen is continuing the trend. Anthony Albanese is continuing the trend of just running headlong off a cliff like lemmings committing suicide. We're being told the facts can no longer be concealed, that it was a lie from Labor, from Liberal, from these agencies. Renewable energy is expensive, as it has been shown in every country in which renewables, solar and wind, have a significant proportion of the electricity generation. It's all for nothing, because we don't need to reduce human production of carbon dioxide. Nature controls the level in the atmosphere, and it does not warm the planet. It does not warm the planet. China knows that. We produce 560 million tonnes of coal a year and export most of it. Chinese produce 4.5 billion tonnes, that's 8 to 9 times more than we produce, and they're ramping up production to produce even more, and they import coal from Australia. Now we hear that Labor's 82% renewable grid will cost upwards of $1 trillion. Some estimates $1.5 to $1.9 trillion. It's already cost well over $29 billion. I suspect that number is actually much, much higher because the costs are being hidden. Other politicians are starting to realise the truth, but we were the first, Pauline and I. We have called it out from the start. Net zero is a fraud. Net zero is a scam. It's about controlling energy. We've been consistent. We remain consistent. We didn't bow to the lie of consensus or the pressure from international groups. We said, go to hell. We told the truth about renewables, solar and wind, when it was hard for people to tell the truth. It didn't bother us. We just had to tell the truth. The costs are hidden. They're unknown. Bowen is blindly walking off a cliff. The costs are hidden because some aspects of individual families and employers pay for. Backup batteries, for example. You'll be paying for it. Why do Bowen and Albo refuse to acknowledge the truth about the cost and destroy our country? Because they don't know the cost for a start. But I'll tell you something more. Right now, gee, that was a good question. Bowen and Gillard are together on the capacity investment scheme. Go to my speech in the Senate last week. We'll be putting it up eventually on social media. Bowen has brought in the capacity investment scheme, which basically gives a floor to the price, a low point beyond which it won't sink, to solar and wind. That means you have a guaranteed income, regardless of how much power you produce. Julia Gillard is now the chair of a company that is investing in solar and wind. I'm not saying anything's wrong. I don't have the evidence. But why are they being so secretive? Why are they deliberately taking these things off the public books so that no one can get scrutiny of them, so that no one can even do a freedom of information request? What are they trying to hide? The world's most successful investor ever is Warren Buffett. He said wind turbines are a lousy investment. But subsidized wind turbines are a wonderful investment. It's basically transferring wealth from electricity users, from taxpayers, to the rest, to a few parasites. Now let's have a look at some more failures. Renewable energy. This is energy they're fooling with. They're key to our society, key to human progress. So speaking of costs, there's another $5.5 billion being thrown at the New South Wales Central West Orana Renewable Energy Zone. It was meant to be $650 million. That's a huge counting error. 8 times the cost. It was $650 initially. It's now $5.5 billion for the Central West Orana Renewable Energy Zone. 8 times, 846% increase. Quote, New South Wales' Central West Orana Renewable Energy Zone will cost more than $5.5 billion compared with the original $650 million estimate when it was planned as a smaller development, adding to the bulging national bill for delivering the shift to green energy. And bloody solar and wind is not green. It's the opposite of green. And who's going to pay for all of this? You are, the taxpayer. Here's another quote. The Australian Energy Regulator paid the $5.52 billion budget had been calculated by the New South Wales Government's Energy Co based on determined development and construction capital costs, which will ultimately be recovered from New South Wales electricity consumers. So the electricity users will pay for this. Are you wondering why electricity costs are going up? Why the price is going up? So these costs going to parasites, billionaires, overseas multinationals, foreign multinationals, will be recovered from consumers. That's what Bowen and Albanese are building on. That's what they're counting on, taking money from you. That's why they refuse to say what the cost of electricity will be in the future. And John Howard is the man who started it. His government started it. Recovered from consumers. He brought in the renewable energy target. Quote, a raft of other significant costs, including connection and system strength infrastructure, will be funded through access fees paid by generators and storage projects connecting to the green zone. Another quote, the cost of overhead transmission line projects has ballooned by up to 55%, more than half, with substations rising as much as 35% compared with equivalent estimates provided by Australian Energy Market Operator's 2024 electricity plan. In case you haven't known, the Australian Energy Market Operator is a government entity. Remember, as I said a minute ago, Labor refuses to say your power bills are going to get cheaper. What does that tell you? Let's have a look at some of the blowouts in just 6 transmission line projects. Victoria New South Wales Interconnector West. The cost estimate was $3.6 billion. It is now $7.6 billion, 211% increase. Energy Connect was $1.5 billion estimated, now $4.1 billion. That's 273%. That's almost 3 times. HumeLink was $1.35 billion. It's now $5 billion. That's 375% of the original estimate. That's almost 4 times. Copper string, wait for this one. It was $1.8 billion. It's now $13.9 billion, 772% increase. This is not trivially piddly little stuff. This is serious. Marinus Link, it was estimated at $3.5 billion. That was the cost. Now it's $5 billion, and it's been halved in size. So basically, it's a 140% increase for a halving of the capacity, which is equivalent to a 280% increase per unit cost of electricity. The Central West Irana, as I said, was 650 million. It's now 5.5 billion, although it's a much bigger scale, 846%. And what about Snowy 2? Snowy 2, Malcolm Turnbull's baby. Now the Labor Party's baby. They won't kill this dog. $2 billion initial cost. I could see, when I was out of the Senate, I could see the holes in that. I knew it would be at around $10 billion just by getting the basics in place. They didn't have transmission lines that could handle the extra power. There are so many inefficiencies in this project. You just have to look at it with a half a brain and you can see it. $2 billion, it's gone from $2 billion to $12 billion so far, but it'll go much, much higher yet. Some people believe it'll go to 20, I do. 6 times at the moment, 600%. Pioneer Burdekin, pumped hydro. Yes, they are. Raw talk, jaw-dripping rip-offs. Pioneer Burdekin, here in Queensland, that Palaszczuk and Miles brought in. Pioneer Burdekin pumped hydro. $12 billion has gone to $36 billion. Who's going to pay for the bloody Olympics? Before being cancelled. And that's one of the things Chris O'Philly has done correctly. He's cancelled this bastard of a project. So it's gone up 3 times, 300% increase. And then there's another one in Queensland, Barumba Pumped Hydro. It's now approaching $20 billion from, I think, from memory, from a few $1 billion. This is absolute insanity. It shows complete disregard. It shows the middle finger to every single Queenslander and every single Australian. They don't care, the bureaucrats. They don't care, the politicians, especially the Labor Party, but also the Liberal Party. They do not care about just talking the globalist bullshit from the United Nations and the World Economic Forum, taking our country off a cliff. They do not care. It's a huge middle finger. It shows complete negligence, complete dishonesty, complete fraud, complete ignorance. Not once or twice, repeatedly and always. Everything in this turns to crap. I'm going to speak positively about one thing on this transition. There is a wonderful man monitoring what the government is doing. He's blowing the lid on this nonsense. Aidan Morrison is doing fantastic analysis. We use his material. His material was the basis for my Senate speech last yesterday, a week ago in the Senate. It was he produces fantastic material. Aidan Morrison on X, well worth following. There he is. Good smile too. Oh, now, here we go. The Greens moved a motion, and with their communist coalition partners, the Labor Party, they got it up. The Senate, this is aimed at misinformation, disinformation, bringing misinformation, disinformation. Sorry, it's not aimed at misinformation, disinformation. It's aimed at bringing in the misinformation, disinformation censorship bill. This is the Greens. They've got an inquiry. It got up because Labor and Greens control more than half of the Senate. They've got it reporting in February, which will be in time for the Labor Party to say, thank you very much, we'll bring in a misinformation, disinformation bill. So One Nation stopped that bill. One Nation stopped that bill. Morrison introduced it. Albanese tried to bring it he put it into the lower house a second time. And we created such a stink that the people rose up and it was stopped. That was thanks to One Nation, thanks to the people. So what's going on? You can see that there, the Select Committee in the Senate on Information Integrity on Climate Change and Energy. Notice how they're trying to move 2 things together. Censorship on climate change and energy. They want to shut down honest debate, honest exchange of information, public information on climate and energy. The inquiry is misinformation and disinformation on climate change and energy, which they call information integrity. The Greens, what would they know about integrity? Nothing. This is a Greens ALP initiative with the intention of showing misinformation on climate change is risking the Earth being consumed in a fiery ball of carbon dioxide. Carbon dioxide is used in extinguishers to extinguish flames. Induce self-immolation unless they censor climate realists. So a fiery ball of carbon dioxide is going to boil the oceans. Boil the oceans and kill us all. From this we know the Greens have already done a deal with Albanese to vote for his misinformation and disinformation bill, the final piece of the digital ID social credit system. If this bill comes in, then the 2025 election would have been our last democratic election here in Australia. Disinformation provisions are being used right now in the United Kingdom, Canada and Germany to silence any political view which disagrees with the ruling left-wing agenda. AfD, Australians for Deutschland, Germans for Deutschland, politicians in Germany are being banned from contesting elections. I'll say that again. AfD, which is now a very large party in Germany, resonates with the Germans. AfD politicians in Germany are being banned from contesting elections because the left-wing regional and federal governments know they will lose. AfD is now the most popular political party in Germany, with policies similar to One Nation. They put Germany first, we put Australia first. The national interest has to come first. That is what's important to a country's government. Citizens are being arrested for social media posts critical of the government in the United Kingdom and Canada. These countries are no longer democracies. I urge everyone to put in a submission to the inquiry. The details will be below this live stream. So I urge everyone to put in a submission to the inquiry to remind the Labor Party, the Greens and the Teals that the only misinformation on climate data and science is coming from them, not from myself, not from other climate realists. By the way, what I'll be saying in my submission is that the best form of correcting the truth is to debate it openly. That is the best form. History has shown that repeatedly. Censorship just builds more lies. The best way to stop lies and to expose the truth is to have open debate, no censorship, apart from censoring out violence and sexual abuse. Misinformation like solar and wind are cheaper than coal. CSIRO is saying that. Labor Party is saying it. The Greens are saying it. The Liberals are saying it. The Nationals are saying it. This is bullshit. It is misinformation. What about misinformation like farting cows will be the death of us all, despite the methane cycle showing cows have zero effect on the atmosphere? Misinformation like Minister Watt from the Labor Party. Recent claim the energy transition would only cost $150 billion when it's going to be 10 times that at least. Misinformation like the polar bears are dead, the Great Barrier Reef is dead and dying. The list of left-wing lies in support of net zero is endless. The real agenda is to control you and me. I've said this repeatedly. By controlling your energy use in work, recreation, travel, and even food. And then we've got UN Sustainable Development Goals linked in with this, SDGs. They aim to control every aspect of our lives, energy, food, money, the lot. Lifestyle, security, safety, longevity, health, travel, education, opportunity, comfort, ease, all destroyed. Paul Tepach says, no coincidence the information bill and backup under 16 bill, was scheduled for the same week. Correct. If you search Climate Change Information Integrity Inquiry, Climate Change Information Integrity Inquiry, you'll see the inquiry homepage and you can make a submission from there. Please stick to the terms of reference and be factual and respectful of the staff. The staff in the Secretariat in Canberra, the Secretariat of each of the committees are wonderful people. They really are quite neutral. They serve the country extremely well, generally impartially, and they do a marvellous work. Do not abuse them. It's not their fault. They've got these dickheads in the Senate and the Parliament misrepresenting what the country needs. It's not their fault. Now, we've also got something else coming up in the Senate. Let's just check the time. The hemp inquiry. The Senate is holding an inquiry into the hemp industry. One Nation is a very strong supporter of hemp. We were one of the original ones to support hemp. It's the original fibre. Hemp is the original fibre. And it's very important for medicinal we also support medicinal cannabis. That's a separate issue, but we support medicinal cannabis as well, and hemp. Hemp for paper, hemp for industrial uses, for textiles, for fibres, for food. Marvellous, marvellous plant. I haven't got time to go into why it's been suppressed, but it's got everything to do with billionaires who are afraid of it. If you have a personal experience in trying to grow or sell hemp, or as a consumer who had problems sourcing a hemp-derived product, please make a submission on the link below. It'll be down below. If you're involved in the industry and have been having problems with government overreach or ignorance around this issue, please make a submission. Billionaires controlling paper, controlling textiles, controlling synthetic textiles have wanted to stop this since the 1930s, and they've been relentless in that. Same with medicinal cannabis. #1 drug listed in America in the 1930s. Marvelous. Over 1 million people in Australia are using it today. We need to get it to them more cheaper. But hemp is not connected with medicinal cannabis, but the same bastards trying to suppress both. Now would also be a good time to review hemp's use in building. There has been a lot of research done lately on using hemp in home construction for improved airflow, better and safer insulation, and faster construction. If that's your area, please put your research into the committee. The inquiry is not about medicinal cannabis. One Nation is preparing legislation around nature's pharmacopoeia, including cannabis. I expect an inquiry on my bill early next year. So we're introducing legislation on medicinal cannabis. Pauline and I have introduced various pieces of legislation about that. What we want now is separate from medicinal cannabis. It's about hemp. So reach out to my office, and here's the email, senator.roberts@aph.gov.au. senator.roberts@aph.gov.au if you need any help finding where to make your submission. But our staff are really swamped because a lot of people know that our guys do look after constituents. So if you can put a little bit of effort into finding it yourself, that would be great. Another piece of wonderful news out of America. Really encouraging developments from the United States when it comes to mRNA jabs. I'll quote, press release from Health and Human Services Department, August the 5th, 2025, Washington, D.C. The U.S. Department of Health and Human Services, HHS, today announced the beginning of a coordinated wind down of its mRNA vaccine development activities under the Biomedical Advanced Research and Development Authority, the crooked BARDA, including the cancellation and descoping of various contracts and solicitations. The decision follows a comprehensive review of mRNA related investments initiated during the COVID-19 public health emergency and pushed by Fauci, pushed by Biden. We reviewed, this is a quote, we reviewed the science, listened to the experts, and we acted, said HHS Secretary Robert F. Kennedy Jr. BARDA is terminating 22 mRNA vaccine development investments because the data show these vaccines failed to protect effectively against upper respiratory infections like COVID and flu. I told you so. Many people watching this know that that's true. But our Prime Ministers, Morrison, Albanese, state premiers, health bureaucrats, some of the doctors' agencies, APRA, ATAGI, told us the reverse. The data is now out. They said they made their false claims without data, relied upon Pfizer and AstraZeneca and Moderna. Now that the United States HHS, Health and Human Services Secretary, has done the research and done the analysis of the data, actual data, this is science. The vaccines are shown to be failing to protect against upper respiratory infections like COVID and flu. That makes me so bloody wild and so emotional because they killed tens of thousands of people in this country on that. This is really important stuff because our Australian TGA says they rely on what the United States authorities do. They basically just copy-pasted their approval of COVID jabs based on Pfizer's trials, not on the USA authorities. The authorities in the United States just rubber-stamped Pfizer, despite 1,200 deaths in the trial setup of people who were given the shot. So if we can copy and paste approvals from America, what America does, then this should go the other way. When they pull them, then the United States pulls them, then we should pull them. By the way, I've been listening to a YouTube podcast, second time I listened to it, The Jimmy Dore Show. YouTube channel, The Jimmy Dore Show, D-O-R-E, Jimmy Dore. The title of his podcast is Now COVID Leaders Admit They Didn't Follow the Science. This is 5 months ago it was released. The White House COVID Response Coordinator is now admitting that they did not follow the science. And she blames Anthony Fauci. The Food and Drug Administration, which approved the COVID shots, one of the members of the Food and Drug Administration and a paediatrician in his own right, admits they did not follow the science. Anthony Fauci is quoted, shown through videos on Jimmy Dore, repeatedly lying. I haven't got time to go into it, just repeatedly lying. The Jimmy Dore Show channel on YouTube, Now COVID Leaders, there it is. There's the title, Now COVID Leaders Admit They Didn't Follow the Science. This is 5 months old, wonderful. Big Pharma is being exposed by the data. Kennedy is a good man. Some people have said he's not acting quickly enough. Rubbish. He's getting on board with the data, making sure he gets the data correct so that he can slam these bastards well and truly. By the way, I want to dedicate this live stream to our Senate office team. Your guidance, support, loyalty, competence and dedication, and to serving Australia and our constituents. You have been singled out. Anthony Albanese, the Prime Minister, has written to us sacking 2 of our staff. I'm their employer. It bypassed me, gave me 12 minutes to make a comment. Tammy Tyrrell has 2 staff. Jackie Lambie has 3 staff, parliamentary advisors. David Pocock has 2. Lydia Thorpe has 2. One Nation had 2 each. Now we've got 1 each. And I've got none. This is what happens in this country under the Communist Coalition, Labor and Greens, when you stand up and you're effective in calling out the lies. And I note that Anthony Albanese has given the Greens a posh new party meeting room. So Ralph Babette's another one who's been cut from 2 to 1. But Anthony Albanese broke the law, broke convention, and reached out and ordered the sacking of 2 of my staff. So the staff are taking that on appeal and going through the process now. So we've been singled out, bullied and intimidated. That tells me we're effective. That tells me we're effective. We will keep going. They are communists. They certainly are, Anne. Do you know, despite this, I remain very, very pro-human. I started my speech on Sunday with love, care and reason. 3 traits unique to our species. And I remain very, very pro-human. Not every human behaves responsibly. Anthony Albanese doesn't. I remain very, very pro-human. I believe strongly that humans are filled with love, care and reason. We all get distracted at times, but essentially we are loving, caring people who use our reason. Thank you very much. Have a great weekend, and I'll leave you with a video clip. I had some fun in the Senate holding a minister accountable, Jess Walsh accountable, for her claims that government money is being used to help people. Where does government money come from? It's taxpayer money.
Minister, you talked about government is providing cost of living relief. Where does government money come from?
Minister.
Thank you, Senator Roberts. The bill before us reduces HECS debts by 20%. It's $16 billion out of the accounts of Australians who have a HECS debt. The way in which that will be provided for is through the budget, and it's a fully costed policy in the budget.
Senator Roberts.
Thank you, Minister. I'm not asking if it was fully costed. I understand what's involved with the bill. I asked you a specific question. Where is government money coming from to pay for government providing cost of living relief? Where does the government money come from that pays for the HECS debt forgiveness cut? What makes up government money? Because that is fundamental. That the government doesn't understand that. Neither did your predecessors. But if you don't understand where government money comes from, how the hell can you justify spending it?
Minister.
Thank you. This is a commitment that we took to the Australian people at the election. The Australian people voted for it. We have a bill in front of the chamber. We look forward to support for the bill.
Senator Roberts.
Minister, So you don't know, it seems, that government money comes from taxpayers. Taxpayer money, not government money, taxpayer money. This is so infuriating. You're destroying the country. You also talk about cost of living relief because of government. That's because of government policies. Where is that money coming from? Cost of living relief. I'll tell you where it's coming from. It's coming from taxpayers. Am I correct?